Hey, I don't know if you know this, but Rick Scott is the second wealthiest senator in our country's history, second only to John Kerry. And he is the wealthiest currently. And that's only based on the publicly known information, which I have a hunch is not the full picture. I'll explain. But first, watch him have a tantrum.
How many people in the audience, how many of you don't want to make money? Anybody want to be poor? I don't. Right? So this idea that we're going to attack people because they make money is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We should cherish all of our different backgrounds.
Oh my God.
Every one of us has a different background. I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money, and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way. So I think it's disgusting.
First of all, I'm not so sure that he has a business background as much as he has a grifting background and a stealing background. Because as I'm sure you know, he is responsible or behind the largest Medicare and Medicaid fraud in this country's history. And now he's the United States Senator crying about the potential prohibition against spouses trading stocks. That's what his tantrum was about. Josh Hawley presented to committee and it passed. It's not law. It passed committee. The Pelosi Act, which they had to rename, but he called it the Pelosi Act for obvious reasons. And if you don't know, Nancy Pelosi has become a multi-hundred millionaire since she's been in office because her husband just makes really lucky trades. I don't know. He just happens to always buy things at exactly the right time and sell things at exactly the right time. And the opponents of the bill are like, you guys, there's already a prohibition against insider trading, so can't you just take our word for it that we're not giving information to our spouses? No, for sure, we can just trust you. You guys just make really lucky guesses. I don't know why you insist on being political public-facing figures if you're this good at trading and you're not getting that information on the inside. Just step down. Trade stocks for the rest of your life. Move to the south of France. Enjoy your grandchildren. Oh, that's right. You need to stay on the inside for your spouses to make such good trades. Anyway, I digress. John Kerry, who was the richest in United States history, got his money from his wife's Heinz ketchup fortune. So that gives you an idea of how rich Rick Scott is. But let me tell you how he got there. So he loves to talk about how he's like this, rags to riches, anyone can. But anyone can if they cheat. And I think that he believes that too, considering he's getting really upset about the idea that he might not be able to cheat anymore. And he might become poor if he can't cheat anymore. Anyway, so he was in the military for a brief time and he used the GI Bill to go to college and to law school. And he went to work for a law firm in Texas and he represented, guess who? Healthcare companies. 9 years later, in 1987, he started his own healthcare company, Columbia Hospital Corporation, which later merged with HCA, and they became the largest healthcare company in the country. And that was the vehicle by which he committed the largest Medicare and Medicaid fraud in the country's history. He'll tell you that, technically he was never charged because the investigation started only 10 years after the company was founded. So in 1997, there was a federal investigation that started and he was forced out then when the investigation started. Charges were not brought until 2000, 3 years later. So he gets to technically say that he was not prosecuted, but we all know that he was at the helm when the crime was occurring. And during that period of time, they are accused of committing the largest, as I said, healthcare, Medicare and Medicaid fraud in the country's history. And the company was ultimately charged with 14 felonies. And as white-collar crimes go, no one went to jail. But they did have to pay $1.7 billion, which is a fraction of the money that they stole from us. They stole from our parents. They were billing for procedures that were never done. They were committing actual and real fraud. And do you know what he got? Do you know what he got for being at the helm of the company that committed the largest fraud in the country's history? Medicare and Medicaid fraud? A $10 billion golden parachute and $300 million in stock options. And this is 1997 money. He was rewarded. But if you falsified your income to qualify for Medicare or Medicaid and then got some services, they would prosecute you. I've represented people for that. You would become a convicted criminal if you're unable to prevail. But when you do it on a large scale, they convince you that it's the one-offs, your neighbor who's committing a little Medicare or Medicaid fraud that is hurting your bottom line, that is robbing you blind. And it's the guy, Rick Scott, who's committing it on a large scale, telling you that your neighbor doesn't deserve any money and they don't deserve any help and fuck them. I need to calm down. So anyway, he gets a bunch of money and then he starts another healthcare company. I just want to recap for you. He represented healthcare companies when he was a lawyer. Then he started the largest healthcare company in the country, merging with another company, becoming the largest. And then he starts another healthcare company. Okay? Always on the side of the healthcare companies. Just keep that in mind. He starts Salantic, a chain of urgent care clinics. And I mean, you would think that he learned his lesson, right? He was going to run this one clean. But remember the beginning of this video, that tantrum? But what, like, I've got to be able to cheat. He was accused of Medicare and Medicaid fraud again. So each of the locations had to have a doctor's license associated with it, but they had nurses and PAs seeing patients, but they were billing Medicare and Medicaid for doctors seeing patients. And there's a 25% differential between them. Nurses and PAs could bill at 85%, and doctors were billing at 100%. So they had oftentimes no doctor on staff, just a license associated with, but billing as if a doctor saw each patient. That is a real easy way to steal 25%. And if that wasn't enough, there was a doctor who sued because they were using his name and license for one of the locations, and he's like, I have never been employed by you people in my life. And Rick Scott settled real fucking quick. And the settlement is confidential. Super legit, I'm sure. Right, so he's been on the side of healthcare. And then suddenly, and I mean within a year of him running for governor of Florida, he starts a 501c3 nonprofit called Conservatives for Patients' Rights. Now he's on the side of patients? This was literally just a way to campaign against Obamacare, educate the public on the evils of Obamacare under the guise of patients' rights to choose options for the patients. When really the bottom line was that Obamacare was not going to be good for his buddies, all of the people that he came up with, the industry that he has been a part of since the day he graduated law school. He seeded that little 501c3 with $5 million of his own money. And then within a year, he ran for governor, self-funded. And when he ran again, self-funded. And how much money you have in the coffers oftentimes determines who wins. That's it. And even though he had the most money and he didn't have to raise it because it was from his own pocket, he only ever won by 1% margins because nobody fucking wanted him. And here's the thing about his net worth. He allegedly had a $250 million net worth while he was Florida's governor. And then the day after, as soon as he starts running for Senate, still $250 million, but then 6 months later, he's at $550 million. And that number has not moved since 2019. Sounds kind of funny, doesn't it? That his net worth has just maintained the same, and yet he's so upset about a prohibition against spouses trading stocks? Oh, is it because of the loophole where you don't have to report as your assets, any assets that are held by your wife, held in a private trust, held offshore? He put all of his money and his assets in his wife's name and or in a trust. He says he's worth $550 million. It's more like billions. And he's worried about getting poor, like a large number of his constituents, while he lives in a $21 million house on the water in Naples and has a second home in Montana. He's worried about becoming poor. Yeah, Rick, you can either be a public servant or you can worry about your personal wealth. It's one or the other. You are welcome to step down. Or do you need it? You need your little $250,000 salary to grow your wealth? Or is it something else? Is there some other benefit you get from that seat? I'm just curious. Anyway, thoughts and prayers.